All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining the Chantay Golson Show. We have the lovely Kate Donovan with us on today, and she is going to give us some tips and strategies about how to recover basically from burnout, female entrepreneurs. So a couple of things about Kate actually is she is one of the New York City's leading burnout experts and acupuncturists, host of the Burnout Podcast, and author of the book of the Bouncebackability Factor in Burnout. So she helps them to gain resilience and change the world. So her master's degree in traditional Chinese medicine enables Kathleen or Kate to combine Eastern wisdom with her natural practicalities after performing more than 25,000 acupunctural treatments. Kathleen added one-to-one coaching in her particular business for the purpose of not only helping her female clientele, but to provide keynotes and workshops to be able to help the world in aspects of how to focus and to move on from that burnout. And you know that this show is all about recovering from burnout. So thanks a million for being with us, Kate, today.
I am so grateful for being here. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I can't wait to share some fun things with your audience.
Absolutely. So we're talking to those C-level and higher executives as well as entrepreneurs today. And so there are a lot of things that come down the pipe in our day-to-day. And I'm an entrepreneur, as well as I've been an executive in large corporations concerning the state. And so with that being stated, tell me, what is the actual definition of burnout? How do we really know what this thing is?
The actual definition of burnout is something that fascinated me because I poured through research for about 3 years, and my husband was doing a postgrad degree at Columbia at the time. So I had access to all the university libraries. So I could really get into every piece of burnout research that was out there. And all of them are built around corporations and hospitals. So there's nothing about the female entrepreneur, nothing, which is really interesting to me. But the definition consists of 3 parts. The first part is physical and emotional exhaustion, which could cover pretty much any symptom that you've ever had. So this is to me like a really generic, I'm glad that the research says that, but also what does that even mean? The second one is cynicism and detachment. So I call this your internal negative Nancy. You're just being nasty to yourself. You're feeling detached from other people. That's number 2. And the third one is a lack of feeling impactful or a lack of noticing your own accomplishments. Right? So can anybody raise their hand out there if you've never had those 3 things at the same time?
Well, can we?
Can any of us, I feel like that's something, all those 3 things combined, almost everybody has experienced at one point or another. The question is, what does it actually look like in your life? And what does it mean for you? And what are the things that need recovery for you? Because in every single person, it's different.
Okay. And so, we know that burnout comes with so many aspects to where it's funny. It's not a ha-ha funny, but it's funny how you don't even recognize as you're going through the burnout. You just know different things are becoming uncomfortable. You're frustrated. You know that, you don't have a desire to go to work or to do what you need to do. So you make a little excuse or 2, then it becomes 3 or 4 throughout the week and the month to where you want to take a little side vacation from the job. And then if you have staff, then you put everything in their lap. And then when you decide to get back at it, you see how jacked up they've done everything. These people that you have hired and you think that they have the capacity. And we talk a lot about that, understanding who you're hiring. So I think, the reason why I have this podcast is, number 1, I can testify. I can say amen. I can say yes and yes. Because I have gone through it to the fact that I lost so much money. When I tell you so much money.
You mean it?
I mean it. And then I went through an emotional thing too, a breakup. So that added with it. So the list goes on and on. I've told my story on the podcast, but one interesting thing that I want to know from you is how can we make an assessment of this level of burnout in our own lives? How can we get it before it's too late?
To me, this is a two-part question. The first answer is, how much resentment do you have?
I resent in my business.
And my business, my employees, my clients, my patients, everybody. When I saw a phone number that I didn't know pop up on my phone, I was like, don't you people know I'm busy? Like immediately, right? So if you find yourself feeling irritable and resentful most times during the day, you're burnt out. Right? That's really important. The other part that I will ask people to watch for, which is a little more subtle and something that we stop noticing because it's one of those things that happens gradually and we adjust and we adjust and we adjust. But the other thing that you need to look for is when your coping mechanisms that always helped you in the past stop working in the present. So if you were the type of person, it doesn't matter whether these coping mechanisms are healthy or unhealthy. It's unimportant. If you were a person who used to run, 3 miles at the end of your day to clear your head and get back into like your evening to create separation from work and home, whatever it happens to be, those 3 miles used to invigorate you and clear your head. Now they exhaust you and you can barely finish them.
Yeah.
If you used to drink 1 glass of wine, now you're drinking 1 bottle of wine and you're still not getting the effects that you need to get. So when the coping mechanisms stop working, you're burnt out.
Yeah. And people don't see how, or the pivotal point where you need to modify the things that you need. They don't see that because no one considers themselves as burned out. Now, in all of my research, and then I also service executives in my medical practice and providing coaching. They do not recognize burnout at all. Now, what they do recognize is stress. They do recognize that. But it's so important to not to quantify or call something what it's not. If you were stressed 8 months ago and you stress today, is it still stress? And that's what we're here to educate them about, right?
Yeah.
So what is the one emotion everybody can look out for to help them determine if they are burnt out or not?
Right. So this is the same as before. And I put this question up twice on purpose because I feel like resentment is the red flag / golden key to everything burnout. And it's the thing that we're all sort of ignoring most of the time. Because resentment is other people's fault, right? Resentment is when we're blaming other people. So it's not our fault that we feel this way. It's somebody else's fault that we feel this way. So we don't take any ownership of it. So we just tend to push it to the side. And this is like a focal point of my coaching work. I have a mini course about resentment because I feel like it's so important. So resentment is really the thing that you need to look for, even if you need to start keeping track, right? If you are generally pretty kind and generous, but you open the door for somebody and they didn't say thank you, and you kind of after them, you kind of throw out a snarky, "You're welcome." That's resentment.
Passive aggressive.
Yeah, passive aggressiveness is resentment. It's all tied up into the same thing. If you are not being direct about your wants, needs, and desires and boundaries, you will feel resentment and you will burn out.
Now let's kind of put some clarity to here because it seems like there's a fine line there right here from the point, because we talked about irritation is one of the symptoms. Your previous coping skills is another thing that you want to be aware of, how effective or ineffective they are.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so if you're snarky with this person who doesn't appreciate you doing a kind act towards them, and you are passive aggressive or snarky, then when is it, or how can a person become aware in this particular time zone, real life time, that wait, hey, let me check myself. What's going on here? And these are the things I teach, but I'm asking you, how do you teach your clientele to identify their cues? What's actually happening here?
This is a great question.
Yeah.
This is a great question. So for me, I ask people to just start noticing. I start at a very basic, simple level. I give some examples like I just gave now, and I say, start writing it down. Just start writing down When you notice that you're feeling a little pushed over your edge, like you get a text message from a girlfriend in the middle of the day who asks you to go out to lunch and you say, I'm not a lady who can lunch. I'm a business owner. Like I have things to do.
Yeah.
When you start to pay attention to those moments when your emotional reaction towards that person it doesn't exactly match the situation. She simply asked you if you wanted to go out to lunch. She doesn't know how busy you are. And it's not her job to monitor your stress levels or your schedule. Mm-hmm. She's just reaching out. Mm-hmm. Right. So when you start to notice that you are, kind of snappy with everybody around you, when most of my clients actually say this one thing, I don't like myself anymore. I'm being nasty to my family. I know I'm being nasty to them and I can't help myself. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because they're sitting in those emotions and don't understand. Number one, you understand the consequences before you really understand what's going on with you.
Right. Right.
So with that being stated, I'm wondering, how do you teach your clients the difference between burnout prevention and burnout recovery?
This is something that makes me, can I say a bad word?
No.
Okay, this makes me angry.
Okay.
I'll just say that. This makes me angry because when you look at the world of burnout right now, it's blown up in the past couple of years, right? There's all sorts of people that are working with burnout, which is wonderful. I'm all for that. I can't save everybody. Nobody can save everybody. We all, I'm glad that there's a lot of us. However, every piece of information I see popping up on Instagram tells you how to prevent burnout. Nobody is thinking about preventing burnout before they're already burnt out. And if you're already burnt out, the prevention measures aren't going to work.
So they don't know about that they're burning out. That's
exactly. So the prevention measures don't often work on people that are already looking for help, because the prevention measures are stuff that you were doing already, are the coping mechanisms like exercise and things like that have stopped working because you're already burnt out. Mm-hmm. So when you are in recovery mode, the number one most important thing is making sure your nervous system is safe so that you can enter into a state of parasympathetic dominance, right?
Tell me more about that.
So I know you already know this, but for the people listening, we have an automatic nervous system. It's responsible for everything that happens in our bodies that doesn't require our control. And there's two pieces of it, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic is responsible for fight or flight. So this is the kind of stuff that, like, a car ran over a child and then stopped, and the mother was able to pick up the car up off the child and get her child to safety. This is the sympathetic nervous system at work. You get massive power, a lot of cortisol, a ton of adrenaline, all this stuff coursing through your veins. The problem is a lot of us are stuck in this system all the time. So we're holding the tenseness in our muscles. The blood is not going to where it needs to go to rejuvenate us. So our heart rate is raised. Our intestines aren't moving the way they should. We're not getting enough blood to the liver. We're just tensing in our muscles. That's kind of the only thing that gets left over, and our hormones are getting whacked.
So is this why when we sit, or when I sit at my desk and I open up and see all these emails about that kind of stuff?
Yes, exactly.
Oof.
I have a Chinese medicine intake form that I do with all of my coaching clients and all of my new patients. And if you look at the people that are coming in for burnout, it's 100 out of 100 that they have neck and shoulder tension. Mm-hmm. 100 out of 100. Yeah. Like it's 100%, right? So that's the sympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is rest, digest, and recreate, basically. So it's all the energy that you need to have a good hormonal system, a good menstrual cycle, good digestion. It regulates your heartbeat. And it's the system that's supposed to be active while you're sleeping that cleans out all the damage that you've done during the day. So it restores all the cells that may have gotten any sort of damage during the day for normal reasons. I'm not saying that you did anything in particular, but just normal damage that happens. Your parasympathetic system moves it out and heals you while you sleep. It should.
It should.
It should. But when you're burnt out, you're often stuck in what's called sympathetic dominance. So you're stuck in this sympathetic nervous system that's like on fight or flight all the time. And you're not spending enough time in the parasympathetic system in order to heal. So above and beyond anything else in recovery, because when you are actually burnt out, when you've been in chronic stress for a long time, the front of your brain is actually diminished. Like you lose gray cells, gray matter. you lose neurons, you lose brain cells at that time. So your executive functioning has been diminished. That cannot regrow unless your nervous system is in a state of calm and your vagus nerve is in a state of high functioning. And so the number one thing for burnout recovery is rest, like deep, deep, deep rest.
So that's how I start this process.
Yeah.
I go to sleep. I take a break. What else do
acupuncture, yoga nidra or body scan meditations. Yoga nidra, it's called sleeping yoga or body scan. It's a guided meditation that usually is about 15 minutes long. And it's the same one that they do at the end of a yoga class. You know, like you lay down in corpse pose at the end of a yoga class and they're like, relax your eyebrows, relax your lips, relax your jaw. And you're like, boo, and you turn into jelly while they say it. This is yoga nidra, basically.
Yeah. And you start snoring.
Exactly. And it brings your body into a state where healing is possible, where you can regrow the brain cells that you've lost, where you can reconnect with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the first thing to get the executive functioning operating to its peak performance is rest.
Yes.
Now,
so frustrating for people.
Yeah. You know, it's amazing, especially those who are in high positions and who are entrepreneurs. Over time, it becomes very difficult to be still or quiet your mind over time, because I can be doing this. I don't need to sit here. You get up and do, you can be doing this. And it's so uncomfortable because I went through that. It's so uncomfortable to sit down and watch a movie because your brain is, you can be, shut up! That's what I had to learn to say. I'm okay. I can start resting. I can rest right now. And so I really had to retrain my brain to shut up at certain times of the day. Now I say that comically, but that is real.
Yes, it's very, very real.
And one thing about the executive brain is that, number one, it carries the source of the energy for us. So if we got all of these things, we got 70% of trauma, anger, fear, stress, tired, keep going. Yeah, all of that. And then guess what your executive brain does? It has no room other than 30% to try to carry your energy. Because guess what it's doing? It's holding up all this weight.
Yes, exactly. And it has no room to manage your emotions, because the other thing that the executive functioning of the brain is responsible for is taking the reactions that you have from trauma in your animal brain, from whatever situation, and putting a logical filter over it and saying, I don't need to react like a crazy person right now.
Mm-hmm,
that's what that's another thing that your executive functioning does. So when you're burnt out and your emotions are all over the place, you literally can't help it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not your fault. Like, you literally can't help it. Your brain is not primed to be able to do that job that it's supposed to do.
Yeah, and that's where the limbic system and the cerebral cortex kind of relevant. They have to balance each other out.
Exactly.
Brother, calm down. That's not the same situation that just happened. Go back.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. But when you can't do that.
Yeah.
You just react.
So that's why they need to continue to listen to the Chantay Golson show so they can learn these particular things.
Yes, please.
Now, concerning your book, Bouncebackability. Bouncebackability. Tell me about, what does that mean?
To me, bouncebackability is this deep, deep faith in yourself that no matter what happens, you'll be able to come back from it and maybe even end up as an improved version of yourself. So I'm not talking just resilience, because the definition of resilience is like the elastic band gets stretched and then bounces back to where it was before. I'm not saying back to where we were before. I'm saying that we improve. And there are 4 components to bouncebackability. The first one is resilience. It's important. Okay. I'm not anti-resilience. I think it matters. But the second one is trust. Like, this is harder.
Yeah, okay. Tell me more about that.
For me, trust is trusting yourself and trusting other people. So, for instance, when you are an entrepreneur and you are a female and you work in a helping profession,
Mm-hmm.
So you're on board with all of this,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You tend
Yeah.
to overgive,
Yeah.
and you tend to help people more than they're asking for, because we have not learned to trust other people to be adults in their own lives. We're saying, let me help you figure out how to fix that, instead of saying, I trust that you have the resources to handle your own stuff.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So this is a trust that needs to be built in order to be bounce backable. You need to learn how to let other people handle their own stuff. You also need to trust that you can handle your own stuff, even if that means asking for help. I'm not saying you have to do it on your own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
that you're able to reach out to the proper people at the proper time when you need them.
Yeah. That's why you burnt out, because you don't.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Right. So we have resilience and we have trust. The next one is grit. The next part of bounce back ability is grit. So I'm putting resilience and grit in there. So I'm not saying that I'm totally anti putting in the work that you need to put in to create the thing that you want to create. No, you've got to sometimes buckle down and get dirty. Like, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
But then the fourth one is surrender.
Hmm.
So there's 4 parts to bounce back ability: resilience, trust, grit, and surrender. And the surrender part of it is understanding on a deep level that we cannot control everything that happens. And if we have not learned that this year,
Yeah.
I don't know what we've learned.
Yeah.
Right? That we can't control everything, and that sometimes we have to just flow with the way things are flowing and allow ourselves to be taken for a moment until a solution appears, instead of trying to control an outcome.
Mm-hmm. And that reminds me, especially moms. I service a lot of parents of teenagers who are, executives and
Yeah.
et cetera. And that just reminds me of a word: superhero, super mom, that they feel like they have to be after being super this in the world.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I understand now. So for a woman who is in this process of wanting to start to recover or heal, how do you encourage them to start that process after they totally surrender and admit that they're fried? And I admit I was fried, crispy on both sides.
I love that.
So,
So for me, when you're totally fried, and it's not easy to just jump into a healing journey. So what I tell people is to allow themselves space to do miniature improvements.
okay.
We're talking the method of Kaizen, very small steps that lead to big improvements. But when you're starting, if you're ready to work with someone, get in touch with them, great. If you're not, interrupt your day 3 times and take 3 deep breaths.
Okay.
And that's it. Start with that. Let's start resetting your nervous system in these minuscule ways so that your body still feels safe enough to allow you to do it. Because the recovery that you really need is much deeper. But if we throw you from this crazy, hypersensitive, sympathetic nervous state directly into like hour-long meditations, you're going to freak out, especially if there's trauma involved, because you don't feel safe enough to be in that recovery space.
And that's that deep. And so you're really talking about the deep work. That's why having a professional on your side will be very helpful.
Exactly.
Because understanding this all by yourself, you're not going to understand that.
You should not DIY burnout recovery.
Yeah. All right. Are there lost causes when it comes to burnout?
I don't think so, no. I think that eventually everyone will reach a point where they choose to heal instead.
After they decide to stop being in denial and afraid, and the list goes on, right?
And sometimes it requires a major medical emergency.
Especially when you have constant burnout, as we were talking about earlier, at some point it starts affecting you physically. You can have a heart attack. You can have,
stroke. You could have. I've had probably 4 or 5 clients that had Bell's palsy. But the doctors couldn't find any sort of reason for it. They were just like half their face fell in the middle of a meeting. They're like, the left side of my face fell in a meeting.
Wow.
I didn't know what else. Like, I've seen that happen quite a bit. You can have repeated chest infections that are a little bit dangerous. You can have migraines that maybe you used to have them once a week and once a month, and now all of a sudden you're having them twice a week.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it can be really much more serious than that. So you get to this place where you need to actually heal physically before you can address the rest of the stuff. But I don't think that's a lost cause either.
Right. And, you know, and going back into layman's terms about the headaches, one thing about it, they try to fix the symptom by taking Tylenol or what have you.
Right.
Trying to wonder, hey, why didn't Tylenol work this time?
Exactly.
Or et cetera. So, you know, it's a deeper look. And especially when it comes to men, yes, I have said it out loud. When it comes to men, they will ignore these things. But busy women will ignore this too, though.
Yeah.
So start looking out for your well-being. Self-care, self-care, self-care. The signature page can wait 5 minutes. The meeting can be pushed back 30 minutes. Nobody is going to die.
Yes, thank you. Amen.
So with that being said, how can we grab a copy of the Bouncebackability Factor? Where can we access this?
The Bouncebackability Factor will be available on Amazon, and you can go to bit.ly/bounceback-order. So that's the easiest way to find it.
Okay. Where can we find you on social media?
You can find me on Instagram. I am at Kate_Donovan. That's the easiest place and the best place and the place that I love the most. Slide right into my DMs. I will definitely chat with you because I'm into that. And I also love spending time on LinkedIn. If you're there, you can find me, Kate Donovan, and I will pop up for sure. And I am just so grateful for having this conversation. I love having these conversations, Chantay, with people who get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I loved being here with you today and having this conversation with somebody who's like, yes, 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 I understand. Yes, I can explain that. Yes, we can layman's terms that. So I'm really grateful. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful to have you. And so we're going to close out now. We're going to talk to the audience just a little bit to help you to understand that these things are serious matters. When it comes to burnout, it is especially important to realize that sometimes what you are calling stress may be a continuation or a buildup at stress. And so you don't want to hinder the rest of your life simply because you don't want to go, you don't want to miss out on the 30-minute meeting. You don't want to stop and do this. Take breaks. Use ways for self-care. Listen to music. Walk outside. Talk to a friend, talk to a neighbor, go home and relax. Tell yourself, no, I will not look at these emails. Turn the chime notifications off. And so these are just simple, practical things that you can do to start your wheels turning again. Because if you're not motivated in your business, you're not motivated in your leadership, guess what? Your revenue will drop. Your outcomes will not be met, and then you're jeopardizing your livelihood. So pay attention, guys. I appreciate you joining us for the Chantay Golson Show. Stay tuned for the next episode, which will be every week on Tuesday. This is Chantay Golson signing out. Have a great and wonderful as well as productive day.